They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her.
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line.
Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go! Here I
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can't hide.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Contentful. Marketers, you know that feeling when your creative clicks? When that social post sends engagement through the roof? When your outside-of-the-box campaign hits ROI positive? When a personalized homepage turns prospects into customers? It's utter marketing bliss. Contentful helps you create tailored omni-channel experiences without working overtime. No stress, no limits, only possibilities. Get the feels at Contentful.com.
And welcome to Haway The Podcast. It's Gav, and you join us for this week's Q&A pod. Thank you very much, first and foremost, to everybody who got in touch over on social media. We've got loads and loads of questions from you lovely lot this week. So I've assembled a panel of gentlemen who are going to answer your questions, and I'm going to catch him on the hop here because he's just took a big glug of iced tea or iced coffee. I don't know what it was. It's Johnny Hawley. Hello, mate.
All right, mate. Iced coffee. I'll let the listeners in on the secret there, but I'm requiring caffeine after some overnight hijinks in the airport coming back from Amsterdam. So I'm looking forward to talking about Sunderland just to take my mind off it.
Tiredness coming back from Amsterdam. I think something else might have been at play there. Anyways, moving swiftly on.
No, Dad, don't listen to him. He's full of shit.
Also with us, we've got Ant Watson, who was in a similar fettle. He's back, so he's all coming up on the bed there. Hello, mate.
Tried to think I'm a young go-getter doing boxing yesterday, and it's gone off. So, yeah.
Right. Is your body telling you to wrap in, mate? That's what it is.
I think so. I'm getting old now, nearly 40 and that, so it's...
Retirement age is coming. And also with us is Andrew Smithson. Hello, mate.
Hello, Gav, mate. I'm fighting fit in comparison to the rest of the lads. Like, I'm not feeling too bad at the moment.
It's nice to hear Andrew cheerful again, like.
I don't know what that was. Honestly, I was well up for that podcast. I just must have been something in my throat when I started speaking.
You were all hello, Gav. I thought we lost. So yeah, like I said, chaps, we've got plenty of questions from the good folk out there, mainly from Ready to Go and Twitter. We've opened up the floodgates, I think. And we've got plenty of things to chat about today. And I'm going to start right off the top with a friend of the pod, Connor Bromley. And I'll go to you first, Johnny. Connor asks, do you think we could see a shock relegation this season? If Sunderland and Leeds continue to look strong, it means two established Premier League teams will go down. Opta has Wolves, Burnley and West Ham as the current favourites, but also have Forest and Man United at both 10%. So the question there is, can you see a shock relegation coming? It's been a while. I mean, there's been all this talk, hasn't there, about the fortunes of the promoted teams and the fact that in the last two seasons, all six promoted sides have gone down. So for that to flip, there are going to have to be some shocks, I guess, aren't there?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, to be honest, it just depends on what your bar is for a shock relegation, really. Because to a degree, any of the sort of 17 who've stayed up the last couple of seasons going down at this point would be a bit of a shock, wouldn't it? Just because it'd be so out of the, I wouldn't say out of the ordinary, but certainly out of the ordinary for the last couple of years. So then that would be somebody like, I mean, Wolves have obviously started, pretty dreadfully. 1 point on 6 games as we sit right now. So if Wolves were to go, then by that metric, then yeah, I can definitely see a shock relegation. looking a little bit higher up, Forest is the name that jumps out at me out of the ones that you just rattled off. As hilarious as it would be for Man United to go down, and as much as we'd all be here for it, I still don't think, you just can't see that happening, can you? But Forest, they've already sacked the manager. Ange is not having a good start. They've got Europe to contend with, which is obviously something that's very much new to them as a squad. And, with somebody like Marinakis as the owner, I best be careful what I say in case he's listening, but anything's possible at a club like that. When the ownership becomes a little bit of a sideshow, then, things can snowball quickly, can't they? And it could easily be a situation where Forest find themselves, almost by surprise. It gets to about March time and they go, hang on a minute, we're only a couple of points away here. Like, if it goes against us, we're in big trouble. So they'd be the ones for me I'd be worried for. But also, I'm not worried at all because it has to be somebody, and I hope it's not us. So whoever it is, I don't care.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking there, Andrew. West Ham have had, I think, 13 seasons in the Premier League. Forest, a little less. Obviously, they've had 3. And then Wolves have had 7. So these are very established football clubs. They're not clubs who've flirted with the Championship too often. But it kind of does feel like, because of ourselves and Leeds, that in particular, Burnley are doing okay as well, but I know they're in the bottom 3. But, ourselves and Leeds are kind of bucking the trend right now in the first 6 games. And you look at that table, I mean, another one that hasn't been mentioned are Villa, who we only played the other week. I know they've turned a little bit of a corner. They've picked up 5 points from the last 3, and above them on the same point are Newcastle. And I love that. But there are clubs who have been well established at this level for a number of years who are going to be looking over the shoulder a little bit and going, bloody hell, we didn't expect this from Sunderland, we didn't expect this from Leeds. All of a sudden, it's opened up a big debate on who might actually struggle this year, and it's made the Premier League really interesting.
It has. I wonder if a couple of clubs are guilty of becoming complacent due to the fact that the last 2 seasons we've seen all the newly promoted clubs come straight back down. That is boring as a fan to watch, though. If you can predict at the start of the season who's going down and be confident, it gets a bit tiresome. But yeah, I wonder if a couple of clubs have got a bit, taking their eye off the ball. The other thing, we've seen it ourselves when we had our long stint in the Premier League. When you first get in the Premier League, it's exciting and there's a whole load of momentum behind you. But it comes to a point where you hit a ceiling and you don't know what you do next. Do you go for broke and try and break through to the next group above you? Or do you end up just kind of losing that momentum and not really being sure about what you want to do? The things that were successful and had got you into the Premier League, they're no longer there. And slowly, all the good things, all the goodwill just starts to chip away. I mean, West Ham there, you look at them, they're doing making a lot of the mistakes we made. They just seem to bring a manager in with no thought as to how they're going to fit in with the squad available and how they want to do things. And then when
it's crazy, isn't it, Andrew? Sorry to cut over you, but it's crazy when you see the appointment they've made and the fact that he's made a career for himself based on a pretty defensive style of football, which uses pace going forward. You look at that West Ham team we played. Where on earth's the pace in that team? I just don't get that. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of strange decisions go into all of this, the way the season plays out, and there will be other managerial changes. And you don't always get a positive reaction from managerial changes either, do you?
Well, you can't always get the positive reaction because to do that, you need to have other things right within the club and behind the scenes. And just moving on slightly from that point, I've heard a few people now saying, Sunderland are only doing so well because they're stable. But to me, that makes no sense because it's like saying Sunderland are only doing well because their players are better than the players of the teams they're beating.
Sunderland are only doing well because Sunderland are doing well. It's like, yeah, cheers, lads.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that we're stable is why we're able to have had a decent start and show ourselves to be half decent on the pitch. All these other clubs where there's all these politics and, like you say, when the owners start acting themselves and start becoming the headline, those are exactly the types of things you don't need in the Premier League. So I think there is every opportunity for one of the bigger sides to go down this season. And if that's the case, they'll only have themselves to blame.
Yeah. And we've had another question. This comes from Coolest Fridges on Ready to Go. I love that username. He's obviously talking about Mickey Bridges, isn't he? He's actually asked us a bunch of questions. I'll probably bounce back and forth from this one. But the question is, do the results of Palace, Villa and Brentford balance the narrative of not playing any of the big boys and make our results in those games look more impressive than we're getting credit for? Johnny's nodding. I'm in agreement with that. What do you think?
Yeah, 100% agree with him. Yeah. You just look at the Palace result. The Palace result really is probably, as much as it was 0-0, probably the best result of the season so far. The fact that we've gone down there, conceded a goal, and you know what they've just done on Saturday? Beat the best team in the country at the minute, beat Liverpool 2-1, and we're a very, very good value for that. The fact we've gone down there, kept a clean sheet was amazing. And you know what? Like Andrew just kind of said it before. Oh well, Sunderland are basically doing well because all this, that, and the other, and people are going on, oh, we've had an easy start and all that. But we're there on merit. We've performed well this season. We've played some good football. We're so resolute as well. Yes, coming up, there's going to be some hard games. Difficult one on Saturday away to Manchester United, who are massively under pressure. But you're looking at that now, thinking we could get something out of this. I was fully behind us getting a win on Saturday. I just had this feeling in my bones that we were going to get something. And it's just the fact that we've got the side that we've got is just tremendous with. But yeah, like I say, going back to the original question, absolutely spot on. It's a really, really good point.
It is, because I'm sick and tired of hearing this from fans of other clubs. I put this, I write a column for the BBC website each week, and I put this in there today, that I'm sick of hearing it from people. Why are so many neutrals looking at what Sunderland have done and saying, and trying to play it down and almost saying like, oh, well, you haven't played anyone yet. Well, we have. Palace are the best team in the country at the minute on form, in terms of they're unbeaten since March last season, April last season.
Yeah,
18 games of what in that time won 2 trophies. By the way, that was away from home, as you said. Villa at the stadium, like, yeah, we know Villa aren't going through a great time at the minute, but as I've just said, they've kind of turned a corner. Actually, when you look at the fact that they got a really good win at the weekend and a couple of draws, of which we were one of them. And we had 10 men in that game against a team who've regularly qualified for Europe and have played Champions League football in recent seasons with a proven manager and a lot of players that most clubs would take. Like, stuff we talked about last week. And then Brentford, who, to give Brentford some credit, I thought they would really struggle this season, and they might still. But they've not had a terrible start, considering everyone was writing them off. And we beat Brentford, and we had to work bloody hard for it.
And I know Man United are rubbish, but Brentford just battered Man United. Like, that was a no contest game, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gav, just like quickly going back to the start as well, you look at the start that we have had. 3 of those teams that you just mentioned, Forest, Palace and Villa, are playing Europe this season. So, well-established, good football side, and we're unbeaten against all 3 of them. So
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you can't get away from the fact we haven't played a Man City, Arsenal or Liverpool yet. You can't get away from that. But you can only beat what's in front of you, and it doesn't mean we've had an easy start.
Also, everyone's a massive hypocrite, right? Because in the same breath, people turn around and say, if you're a promoted team or a relegation battler, your season's not going to be decided by Man City, by Arsenal, by Liverpool, by Chelsea. What you need to do is you need to beat the teams around you. You need to pick up points at home, and you need to be hard to beat. Well, what the hell else have we been doing?
All 3,
the first 6 games? Exactly. We've kept 3 clean sheets in 6 games, including, like, he's, made a great point. And, we're at Selhurst Park. That's a fantastic, not just result to draw the game, but to shut them out. And that, again, it ties into this point, like, the goalposts just shift all the time. With Palace, like you said, Gav, they're on this ridiculous run of form, 18 games or whatever it is, won 2 trophies. But, it's only Palace. They only finished 12th. Like, that's not a big test. Whereas, actually, I think they're 2nd or 3rd in the league after the first 6 games in that run of form. And then when it's Villa or Forest, who, as we just talked about, got Europe and, were good sides last season, it's, they're good teams, but they're out of form. I said, well, why are they out of form? Partly because we just beat them or took points off
Yeah.
them. And you know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. It can't be Palace are actually crap because they only finished 12th, but then Villa and Forest aren't very good either because they've started badly. Like, at some point, we've got to be given the credit. And you don't... Listen, 6 games in the league table means basically jack shit, doesn't it? Like, it doesn't mean anything, really. But at the same time, those are 6 games of Premier League football, and we've took 11 points out of them, playing 3 teams who were in Europe, like Anne said. And if anybody says they would have sniffed at that at the start of the season, they want their heads checking.
Yeah, we've in the last 3 games, we've also played against teams who've got some of the best strikers, most proven Premier League strikers in the teams. And in that, we've conceded 1 goal, and it was that Matty Cash long ranger. It wasn't Watkins who scored the goal. You know, Forest, Chris Wood looked like an absolute donkey at the weekend, but it was because he was well marshalled by our 2 centre-halves. It was the same with Watkins the week before, and the week before that, Mateta never got a sniff off Mukiele. And that kind of leads us into the next question, which we've got, which is from Elias Haddad, who says, can you just wax lyrical about about Mukiele and reiterate how fucking good he is? These were his stats before the Forest game. They'll be even better now. And I'll just read these out. So the stat is tackles won per 90, 2.67. That ranks him first in the Premier League. Clearances, 9.33 per 90, first in the Premier League. Dribbled past by an opponent, 0 per 90. That had him level first. Headed clearances, 6 per 90. That had him second. And duels won, 7.33 per 90, which had him ranked 4th. Nordi Mukiele, Andrew, we have praised him, but I have no problem doing it again. What a find he's been. And I've been saying this to people over and over. How on earth have the top clubs in this country slept on this guy at 27-year-old? It's not like it's not like Robin Roofs, is it? And we'll get on to him later. It's not like Roofs where like nobody had heard of him. He's come from absolute obscurity to just look like one of the best keepers in the Premier League. Mukiele was playing for Paris Saint-Germain. He wasn't available for a fortune. It was 10 million quid, which in relative terms for a defender as good as that is nout. How have we managed to get this lad in one, and how have the rest of the Premier League just not paid any attention to this guy and brought him in? But overall though, what a player, eh?
Oh, he's a fantastic player, and he could very easily have gone to a bigger club and looked just as comfortable there. I wonder sometimes with the big clubs is if they don't do scouting and they just sign a player because of their name. You know, so somebody who's like Man United, for example, it's almost as if they sign a player because I think they'll sell a load of shirts with his name on the back with no idea as to can he actually improve the team. But yeah, Mukiele just is fantastic. We've said before, Gav, he's got everything you need from a defender, and I seem to get the impression that he's loving being here. Perhaps he's maybe felt at clubs before, he got shunted around into different positions. Maybe he likes the fact that he's come somewhere. Thousands of mental fans absolutely backing him every week. Got a head coach who's saying, yeah, you're my starter, I want you in my team. He seems to be loving it. And we all know if you're settled, you're going to perform at your best. And thankfully with him, his best is really, really good. He's, as with a lot of these players, just so enjoyable to watch. And you never once panic. Anytime a ball's pumped up front or there's somebody trying to get past him, you're never worried. You're just confident that he's going to do the right thing and he's going to get the job done.
Yeah, and Johnny just came to me mind there actually thinking about when I'm saying how and why have people slept on this guy. I suppose we all assumed he was a right back first and foremost. We were told that he primarily played there. If you look at his time in Paris Saint-Germain, he mainly played either right back, right wing back, or right midfield. So maybe that could be why. And he might not end up being a centre half. He might end up moving to right back or right of a 3. You never know how things are going to pan out over the season. But we have been, I guess, caught a little surprised with Mukiele, I guess, in that he is so accomplished as a centre half. Because I did expect him probably to play more as a right back. But you can't fault the guy. Like, for me, he's got everything you need in a centre half, not just defensively, but on the ball, in possession. He's got everything, hasn't he?
I almost get depressed watching him because I'm like, how are you that good and you don't even look like you're breaking a sweat? Like, the guy is an absolute joke. I've been so high on Mukiele since he came in. I think he's brilliant. I think he's absolutely class. And we all love Alderete, right? Who also is brilliant and amazing and fantastic. But as good as he is, I look at Mukiele next to him, I'm like, mate, like, you can literally do the lot. He almost makes Alderete look a bit worse than he is because Mukiele's just that good. And we know how good Alderete is. Like, I cannot stress enough how much I rate Mukiele. I think he's amazing. And on the point about sort of nailing down a position and stuff, I think, and again, this ties into what Andrew was saying, I think part of the reason why we have stolen a march on other clubs is I think we've got so much more of a detailed set of roles that we want to fill with players. So I think whereas a lot of other clubs are probably scouting based on, okay, we need a right back or a centre back or whatever. Right, who are right backs and centre backs? Let's look through them. Let's see who's available. Let's, all the rest of it. Whereas I think we're a bit more happy to just be like, look, doesn't matter actually who the player is, where they reckon they play, what position they fancy playing. We'll look at how they actually perform, run the numbers, and I think we've then crunched those numbers and gone, actually, this lad, he has everything that Le Bris wants in a centre-back. So if we bring him in, and like you say, then we kind of sell him the vision of, look, if you come here, you're going to be a starter, you're going to be basically nailed on to play every game because we think you're that good. And then, whether he's played right back before, right midfield or whatever, if we've identified those attributes and he's got them and he's ticking all the boxes, then we just say, listen, come to us and we're going to establish you as a Premier League player. I think that's very hard to turn down, isn't it? Especially for somebody like him and, other signings we've made this summer, like Gertrude is another one where these players have sometimes struggled to really nail themselves down as a certain position or a guaranteed starter. I think we've been in a much better position to offer that, which is, I think, something that we've leveraged it really well and taken advantage of some of these opportunities in the market where certainly other clubs who would have benefited from those players, you've got no doubt, could have come in and doubled the wages, without blinking. Man United's a great example. I think Andrew mentioned them. We can't compete with that purely financially. So I think we've been very smart about it. And that's why we end up signing lads like Mukiele. So long may that continue because he's class.
Yeah. We'll go back to Cooler's Fridge is on ready to go for you, Ant. And I mentioned him before, Robin Roafs. He said, early days, I know, but with the exception of Monty, name a better Sunderland goalkeeper than Robin Roafs and explain your reasoning. I genuinely can't think of one. Tommy, as in Tommy Sorensen, was class and very commanding, but played in an era where keepers didn't need to use their feet. Gordon was very good, but not as commanding or as good with his feet. I'm genuinely struggling to put another keeper above him based on ability.
Well, I think he's massively wrong there because obviously Lee Camp has gone out of his memory. But he's got a point. I mean, it's very early days, isn't it? It is early days. Until he saves a penalty against the Mags, he'll not go above Tommy Sorensen for me.
Or Simon Mignolet, he also saved a penalty against the Mags.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, at the minute, it's probably a little bit early saying that because it is early days, but he has had a fantastic start, mate. And I think the biggest compliment I could give Roafs at the minute was the saves he made on Saturday against Forest were saves I now expect him to make. You know what I mean by that? They were, decent chances for Forest, don't get us wrong, but I wouldn't call them outstanding saves because I think he's that good.
Well, the club put a highlights compilation of Roafs out and none of them was startling. It was more just the fact that he makes them saves, like the very simple, straightforward one. And on top of that, and these are things they didn't show in that compilation, it's the way he comes flying out to win the ball in the air and catches it, or the way there was a few moments on set pieces where I think it was who was it who was backing into him? One of their players was backing into him. It was one of the centre halves, I think. And Roafs is just over the top of him, like showing just as much strength to just punch it.
Yeah.
And then of course, as we talked about on the reaction pod a fair bit, was the kicking, the distribution was just there. It's everything with Roafs. He's the full package.
His position is magic as well in it, because like you say, and you expect him to make those saves, and they're not flashy. He's not diving full strength, full stretch and tipping stuff around the post, but he just knows where to be, so he makes it look easy, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I say, that the distribution of him is unbelievable. Like, there's a couple of times against Forest, I think he put like a through ball in. I think it might have been Jack who got on the end of it, but it was like such a risky ball, but he made it look so easy, and it split their defence wide open as well. It was a really good pass. But the fact, I tell you what, like, it takes some character for him to obviously come back from last week, which he probably did make an error. He probably should have saved it, everything like that. With a Matty Cash goal, to put a performance in like that shows a lot of, inner confidence in himself and a good mentality for someone so young. He's going. I think long term he might be the best goalkeeper we ever have. But I think we're in an era now of these are probably the best players we've ever had at the club. You know what I mean? I like the Granite Jackers here. Your ukuleles, as Johnny put before. I mean, I saw something on Twitter the other day where I think it was like the funniest thing I could hear was ukulele makes John Mensah look like a Sunday League player. And John Mensah was fucking brilliant for us. You know what I mean? But it's just class. But I think we are in a generation where we're seeing probably players that we've never seen before at this club, like in terms of ability and everything like that. It's great to see.
We'd certainly change some of the top 10s we did in the summer, wouldn't we?
There is a part of me that that typical Sunderland fan that says, quick, I need to throw a caveat in here to cover myself if this goes wrong. But that is purely just pessimism as a Sunderland fan. Looking at these players, like Gav said, these players are coming in here and they don't have the baggage that comes with playing for Sunderland during all the bad periods. Looking at these players, it does sound, from an outsider's point of view, them Sunderland fans are getting a bit above themselves. They've only played 5-6 games. But honestly, as you look at them, they have all of these brilliant capabilities, and that's why Ant is well within his rights to say Roofs could be the best keeper we've ever had. This isn't just us getting ahead of ourselves. They are genuinely performing at such a high level. It's hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
It's really hard to.
It's like Andrew, like we're 6 games exactly. Like we're 6 games in now, and everyone had us, our bottom of the league and this, that, and the other. And a few of us had obviously looked at the signs and thought, nah, we'll be all right. We'll be out this, that, and the other. We're 6 games in, and I think even the most pessimist of Sunderland fans has got to be looking at the games that we've had, especially the last 2 that have been on the telly, and the fact that we played for 60 minutes against a very good side and got a draw out of it. And then on Saturday, going down to the City ground, which was a massive fortress last season, getting a 1-0 win, defending for all of this, that, and the other. But we were never under severe pressure, really. We were very, very comfortable, I thought, in the vast majority of that game, bar the last 15 minutes. That is not a side that gets relegated, like, nowhere near.
It's not. And I wasn't saying this, but there was plenty of people saying at the start of the season, we might be on for a record low points haul yet again. You look at the table now, we're already on 11. I mean, how many points did Southampton get all
12.
last season?
Yeah.
Was it 12? So yeah, there you go. These are not the signs of a team who are in for a long battle against the drop.
Yeah, there was someone who said on Twitter, I'll put me house on Sunderland getting less than 10 points and getting relegated, and that was getting a nice roasting in the replies this week. How is it being homeless now, mate, and all the rest of it? So
I think it just goes to show as well that a lot of like the predictions before the start, because even hearing like the likes of Chris Sutton said at the weekend that we won, when Chris Sutton I don't think particularly cares for us, but he's now kind of like, I think when he did our game against Villa, didn't he, on the telly, and he said that's not a team that gets relegated. And I just think that before a ball was kicked, there was a lot of lazy journalism, just going, well, it'll be the 3 that goes up will come down, and ourselves lead. And I think Burnley will come good. I think Burnley have had a very difficult start. They've played a lot of the big sides.
They've had the hardest start of any team in the league.
Definitely. And I think their home form might keep them up. We're seeing this, the first question before, Connor's question, there might be 3 sides that no one ever expected to go down, because I think all 3 sides have done very well so far. Obviously, we've been the best of the 3, and I think we will be come the end of the season, but I think it just goes to show that I think it was quite lazy. A lot of people just saying, well, I'll be them 3 who goes down, without really looking into the squads and the squad building, start of football, this, that, and the other, and the manager, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we'll go for a quick ad break and then we'll come back and chat a little bit about Régis Le Bris, I think.
En Prime Big Deal Days, este 7 y 8 de octubre, aprovecha grandes ofertas en un nuevo spa de pies. Te transformará en la reina de la relajación.
¡Espera! ¡Tiene chorros de burbujas!
Aprovecha hasta 40% menos en Prime Big Deal Days 7 y 8 de octubre. Con las grandes ofertas de Prime Big Deal Days este 7 y 8 de octubre, la grandeza está en tus manos. Así que si te encanta hornear, puedes conseguir una oferta en una nueva batidora de pie. Te transformará en el príncipe del pan.
¡Atención, atención! Abre paso al varón del brioche, al visconde del bizcocho y al conde de los cuernitos, miembro de Prime, Juan.
Sí, hola.
Aprovecha hasta 40% de descuento en Prime Big Deal Days 7 y 8 de octubre.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome back to Haway The Podcast. Now we're moving on to a couple of questions that we've had about Régis Le Bris, and I'll start with this one from Alpha on Ready to Go, and I'll throw this one to you, Johnny. Alpha says, Régis Le Bris, how good is he? I must admit, I hadn't heard of him till his appointment, but what a stroke of genius it's been in giving him the job. He impresses me more and more, and I honestly think he'll be very difficult to keep a hold of if he continues to impress. I mean, and he then goes on to just talk about how we've lost other managers and saying keeping Le Bris could be our most difficult task. For me, he's the best signing of the summer, bar none. And we have actually had another question along similar lines over on Twitter from Jack Asbury, who says, seems like we're in second season now, with Potter being the first one to go. I think also, Nuno left Forest, didn't he? And they swapped roles. He said, do we need to station guards around Le Bris' doors so no agents can approach him? It will have not gone unnoticed our great start of the season, and that it's been masterminded by him. So there's a lot of focus on our manager right now, Johnny, and I think people are right to feel a little bit nervous. But I did say this to some of my mates the other day. I think this is the perfect job for him. And I think you've got sometimes, regardless of whether it's a bigger club or more money or a perceived more ambition or whatever it is, sometimes job satisfaction means a lot to these managers. So, first and foremost, Alpha's question was, how good is he? And then I guess you can move on to talking about the fact that the vultures might start circling if we keep having so many good performances and results.
Well, firstly, he's brilliant. For me, he's got all of the tools that I want to see in a Sunderland manager. I think I've spoken about this before. But yeah, for me, he has such adaptability and pragmatism that seems to just, be part of his football and DNA. So reminds me in a lot of ways of Thomas Frank, actually, in the way that he approaches setting up his teams, where he's not tied to a philosophy. He's not obsessed with, possession or certain patterns of play or anything like that. He's more than happy for us to be not completely reactive, but certainly, happy for us to be responsive to the opposition and the game state and all of that. And I think that makes us much more dangerous than we would be if not to just keep harping on the 6 teams who came up and went down the last couple of years, but some of those teams, again, we've spoken about this, haven't we, were very stubborn in the way they approached football in general, and especially the Premier League. Whereas I think Le Bris, obviously, when he came in last season, his hands were not tied, but certainly he was operating with much less of a kind of free rein to shape the squad and do what we're seeing so far this season. And even in those circumstances, he was able to immediately get a tune out of a squad that had just finished 16th. So that alone, I think, should go to show how talented he is and how comfortable he is at operating within, different environments. Because, as I say, he came in and straight away we're feeling the impact. And I don't think, I think you could probably count on one hand the number of managers who get us promoted last season. And I think, Le Bris is in that number. So for me, that puts him very, very high in my ranking of managers in the European game at the minute. It's obviously it's early days in the Premier League, but again, like you said before, you can only beat what's in front of you. And so far, he's beaten what's in front of him. So if that continues, I think he's going to see a very sharp rise in his reputation come the end of this season, which then leads on to the second part of the question. And what was it? Station guards outside of his door. I mean, you know, Kirill wants to be installing a Fort Knox style security system around his office at the Academy of Light at this rate, because he's going to be a man in high demand, I think. Certainly by the end of the season, if not before. I think the only saving grace for us short term is going to be, I could have seen Forest being an appealing job for him if that came up later in the season. They were doing half decent. That's obviously gone already. I could have seen the same at West Ham. Like these, as we touched on before, these are decent sized clubs who are very established. So, and as much as every fan base never wants to hear it and everyone wants to be biased and think their own club's amazing, which we are, obviously. But like you think back to Graham Potter at Brighton, where he went to Chelsea when they were sort of imploding under Todd Bowley's early ownership, and everybody from the outside went, but Brighton's a much better job than Chelsea at the minute. Like, they're clearly on the up. What's he doing? He's stupid if he goes there. But at the end of the day, it's still Chelsea, innit? And they're probably still chucking a fat wedge in front of him in terms of his salary and all the rest of it. And so he went. And yeah, it ended up being a bad move for him. A little bit like, you know, the Jack Clark transfer to Ipswich. We were all like, oh, well, isn't it just obvious that we're a better fit for him? And it was obvious and it was true. But still, sometimes, you know, those things don't actually matter as much to the people in the game as I think we would all expect it to. So I still think we'd be in danger of losing him. But I'm hopeful, I think, that during this season, I don't think the right job's going to come up for him. And you were spot on, Gav, you know, job satisfaction is going to be huge. And I think somebody like Le Bris as well, who he stayed in his academy role for about 11 years, didn't he? So he's obviously a man who's happy with a bit of stability. So I'd hope we can offer him that. But yeah, we're certainly going to have to, we might have to get a little bit creative with the incentives we start offering him to keep him when some of the really big boys come circling. But at the end of the day, if managers and players are being courted, it means we're doing well. So again, long may it continue.
Exactly right. That point about if we are successful, people are going to come looking. We've already said, how have we signed some of our players without other clubs coming in and snatching them from us? Well, let's face facts. They're now in the Premier League. So if any of these clubs had a look at McKaylee, for example, and thought, yeah, he's a good player, but he might not make it in England, that question mark's removed. So we're going to have to get used to that fact. You're quite right about managers, I think, have that self-esteem type of, they see themselves as being the man to go into a club that are a mess and saying, I'm the one who can turn it around. But Sunderland do allow their players and their staff a good environment to work in. They clearly look for a type of personality that fits into that group as well. Having said all of that, I don't just think it's Le Bris we've got to keep an eye on. I think Speakman, maybe Gasolfi even. There's a lot of people at the club now who are responsible for this position we're in. And it's not going to be long until people are going to start saying, well, Sunderland have got it right. Do we not just go and steal 2 or 3 of their top figures? So it is something we have to be aware of.
Yeah, sticking on the theme of managers, we've had a question from Martin Bell on Twitter who said, if we'd got Will Still a year ago, when we were heavily linked to him, do you think we'd be where we are now? Whether he turned us down or if Régis Le Bris was always higher up on the list, looking at how he started at Southampton, I can't help but feel we dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I don't like to get into what ifs, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of, you know, it hasn't happened, has it? And you know what? He is struggling down at Southampton. Obviously, there was this rumour that went online, wasn't there, that some players have got the chairman about a manager in the Championship, and it kind of answers a lot of questions about that. But you know what? I am glad we didn't get him. I'm only glad we didn't get him because I didn't want Will Still. You know what I mean?
I was the same. I never.
You know what I
mean?
I just didn't want him. And I think I really hope he has a good career in England, and I hope he has a good career in the future, and I hope he gets Southampton back to where they think they belong. But like I say, I didn't know the same with Johnny. I didn't know Régis Le Bris well when we got him. But the fact that 18 months down the line, we're sitting in fifth place in the Premier League and everything like that. I think he's done an amazing job. And who's to say Will might not have done that? Again, it's just hypothetical, isn't it? So I'm not a huge fan of answering that question, to be honest, because it hasn't happened. So sorry if that's a boring answer, but
no,
yeah.
I mean, to be honest, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm so glad we never got him. I never wanted him at the time. I'm still not fully convinced that we were as in for him as was being reported. We were told that Régis Le Bris was always the first choice, and he was the only manager they ever were interested in speaking to. And it kind of makes sense when you consider how long it took to appoint him, because they had to wait for him to get out of Lorient, and that took a little bit of time. So, but yeah, to be fair, I can't help but look at Southampton and him and just be like, I'm so glad we never went there. He wouldn't have been a good fit for Sunderland, I don't think. I don't think he's got the personality for Sunderland.
He's more about himself, isn't he? Yeah. You know what I mean? With Will, so you see it quite often. And fair enough to him, he's done a hell of a job with very, very, he's not a ex-professional footballer or anything like that. He's gone from the bottom and worked himself all the way up, and fair play to him. I think that's amazing. But for me, he does seem like a kind of a self-assured person, and a bit more about him than it is the team and this, that, and the other. I fully think he is using Southampton to be a stepping stone in his career to go higher. Reggie might be doing it here, but I don't get that from Reggie. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of going back to the original question. I don't see like the break going anywhere else than Sunderland for the foreseeable future. I don't think, look at it now, like say if United got rid of Almiron tomorrow, United won't be after Régis Le Bris. United will be after a big name, won't they? And Régis isn't that big name yet. So they'll want this, really exciting manager like, I don't know, like Jose Mourinho or something along those lines, which won't work. Instead of like actually thinking about what we did. I just don't say it. And you mentioned stability as well. Like, Forest have always had this kind of issue with the owner that they can just completely go, like, implode. The same with West Ham. It's happened so many times in the last few years. So I think he's actually at quite a stable club, to be honest. And who would have thought that 2 or 3 years ago? Can't say we're stable, but it is. It's true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's completely true. And I guess it's similar theme here, Andrew. Coolers fridges. We're back to him again. I'm assuming it's a him, anyways. Over on Ready to Go has said, is there anything we need to be wary of that could derail our season, and how do we mitigate it? Now, I guess one of those would be somebody potentially coming in for a key member of staff, and you could probably argue to a degree we've already mitigated that by giving Régis Le Bris a new contract, so there is that. But anything else you can think of off the top of your head that could potentially derail our season? There's one right on the tip of my tongue, and I'm going to wait and see if any of you bring it up, but I'll let you go with this one, Andrew.
I'm intrigued, Gav, about what you think is hiding around the corner.
Well, do you want us to see it?
I
can't help but think that we're so reliant on Granit Xhaka.
I knew you were going to say that if he gets injured. Yeah.
That would be the one, certainly, that you could, you cannot do anything about injuries. They just happen. And he's the only player in that team I'm looking at right now and going, we don't have an able replacement for him. As much as I like Dan Neil and as much as I like some of these other players, there isn't another Granit Xhaka in that squad.
I don't think you could have a replacement for Granit Xhaka because he's not just a player. He's a figurehead for the squad, and even if he was performing poorly himself in a game, he talks so many players through things. We've said before how whenever there's a break in play, some of the players are going to Granit Xhaka and not Le Bris for like a couple of little bits of instruction. So he's clearly in tune with the coaching staff, and they're all on the same page. So yeah, we could struggle if he was to be injured, but there's nothing to say he will be injured. And in the meantime, we can still just keep clocking up the points. And hey, say Granit does have to miss a couple of games. Gertrude is an international player who can supposedly play in that defensive midfield position. Michele can supposedly do it. So, we're not talking about putting in a 15-year-old lad here. We'd be talking about putting in international quality players. as you say, injuries we can't do much about. But we've only got the Premier League for the next couple of months, so we'll not be burning out any of these players. They'll be scheduling training and make sure the players are ticking over without flogging themselves. With regards other things we need to be wary of, I do think we need to be cautious about the fact that our setup and our model seems to be working, and clubs get lazy. Clubs will see that Sunderland are doing well and say, right, we'll just nick their top personnel. They won't say, let's build slowly a similar type of model. We'll just take the names, parachute them in. The only way we can protect against that is make us a club that people feel comfortable working at, and also have in your back pocket a list of potential replacements. The club will be scouting now for players for next season, and really the club also need to know what happens if any of our backroom staff go. None of this, we lose Speakman and it takes 2 months to replace him. If Speakman or Le Bris or anybody goes, I fully expect the club to have a couple of names on a shortlist who they've done their homework on, they're comfortable with the idea of, and then it would just be a case of opening up discussions and bringing them in. But that is how Sunderland are. Everything is planned. No matter what goes wrong with the club at the moment, you can be confident that we'll react quite well because we are very methodical and very sensible in our approach. This isn't like in the past where something would go wrong and then Sunderland would react. Everything's mapped out.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with how the next few months should go.
So I heard all those words that came out your mouth there, Andrew, in sort of the right order, and I know what all those words mean, but when you said them in that order, Sunderland have a plan for everything, and are you sure? Is that definitely, are we all, this is real, isn't it? This is definitely still happening.
Yeah, and enjoy it for as long as it is happening, is all I'll say. Speaking of, since Andrew mentioned transfers and stuff, we'll do a transfer question. We've got this one, Johnny, for you. From Guinness Guzzler over on Ready to Go. Again, a name that I'm very fond of as a man who drinks Guinness. And he says, if we could make only one January signing, what position would you target? He's mentioned defensive cover, and he's also mentioned the fact that Lefay's role has really changed this season. We maybe thought he was a centre mid option, and he still is, but he looks like he's going to be favoured more out on the left. So do we now need another centre mid? When you're talking about that conversation we just had about Granit Xhaka there, there is that conversation. There's also the fact that, and he's mentioned defence, the likes of Alessi and Sirkin and Hjelde, they're nowhere near at the minute because of injuries and fitness and so on. So what would you say to that then? What, if you could only make one January signing, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I take the point about defensive cover, but I think we're well stocked enough there that I think January would be a bit too soon to be really worried about that. The Xhaka one's a big one. And now, obviously, if some hypothetical magic bullet player becomes available who is somehow able to do any of the stuff Xhaka does to anywhere near the level, who also would be happy sitting on the bench behind Xhaka every week until he gets a hypothetical injury, then I'd be signing them tomorrow. Because if we could somehow have a deputy who, because I think you said it before, didn't you, Gav? Nobody else we've got in that midfield, even though we've got options numerically, and Andrew rattled some of them off, they aren't the same as what Xhaka offers us, clearly. And that's because it's probably, only one or two people in the world who can offer us what Xhaka offers us at this moment.
We need a clone Granit Xhaka.
Yeah.
Make him 12 years younger.
Spend 20 million quid on a research lab to get cloned and sorted instead of a player, and we'll be right. So that would be ideal. But absent that, I'd be looking if there's a player available for someone to be the Loriente that never was. You know what I mean? That was the big signing that we went for in the summer, wasn't it? That never came off for whatever reason. And then, yes, we got Bertrand Traoré in, on deadline day, who's an option, but he plays on the other side. And, respect to him and everything. I hope Traoré has a good Sunderland career, but he's not the same level of player we were targeting. So, and again, it ties into what you said about Lefay, because I think you're right. He's sort of surprisingly emerged as a genuine left-wing option. But if Le Bris does see his actual best position as being more centrally, then signing another left winger would allow us to explore that a bit more, because we wouldn't have to be. It wouldn't be between Adingra and Lafay for the left wing. Then it could be between Adingra and the new man for the left wing, whoever that would be. But I imagine a lot of it will depend on sales as well. You know, if we manage to generate enough headroom to spend a decent chunk, then it would be worth bringing in a first teamer. I just don't want to see us padding to bring a body in for the sake of it, because we don't need to bloat the squad.
Yeah, and we've had a question along similar lines, and from Tony Bang over on Twitter, who says, after 6 games, what do you think the squad needs in January? Personally, I would like to see a new midfielder and a right winger, as I feel all our wingers are better suited to the left. That's a point, actually, that you didn't really address there, Johnny, with Tolby, because Tolby has been playing on the right, but I would say some of his best moments, the individual moments where he's looked most effective from an attacking position, have been out on that left-hand side, even in the game at the weekend when Traore came on and Tolby went over there for a period. I thought he looked pretty dangerous. So, yeah, and on that one, what about you then when it comes to transfers? What do you think we need? Not just, I know Guinness goes, as I said, one signing. Tony's talking more generally about the squad.
Fully agree about Talby. I like Talby better on the left. Thought he was excellent against Villa, and I thought he looked very, very good on Saturday. I actually really like Talby, to be honest. But I think another right, because if he gets injured, it's, you know, he's going away as well, isn't he? The Cup of Nations, I think he's getting called up from Morocco nowadays, isn't he? So if he gets that, then it's maybe, I don't think Traore's going to be here for a season, isn't he? He's not going to be here for a long, long time. And it pains us to see it, but if Ronaldo's out for a long time, I don't particularly trust Masawako after Saturday's show, and hopefully that was just debut nerves, but he just wasn't great, was he? The fact I think he got hauled off after 60 minutes said pretty much the lot. So, you know, like an established left back maybe just to be happy to sit on the bench again. You know what I mean? Because Ronaldo, apart from being very silly, has had an excellent start of the season, hasn't he? So maybe that, but yeah, probably right winger, I think, is probably the main one, as Johnny perfectly put across. I think the one we were after we didn't get, and then obviously getting Traore, and I think it's a sensible signing, but for long term, I think we'll probably need another one there.
Didn't realise Chris Wynn was on this call, and we've re-signed Ronaldo again.
Sorry, yes, I am a Chris Wynn connoisseur of pronouncing Ronaldo.
Yeah. We'll all get our ukuleles out in a minute and have a sing-song.
Andrew, I'll go to you on this one. Bingo Bango on Ready to Go has said, who do you think finishes top scorer for us at the end of the season?
That's stumped us. Isidore has always been a good finisher, and if we can create enough chances, I can see him getting a few more goals. I actually don't know on that one, because I see us spreading the goals around. We've not really seen Brobby have an actual shot on goal as such. He's certainly not had an opportunity where you thought, oh, he should have buried that. He's worked very well around the box and against Forest, getting us up the pitch. Yeah, I'll stick with Isidore, which is probably a pretty obvious one because he is currently our top scorer, but he's arguably our most natural finisher, and clearly Le Bris is liking what he's doing in the Premier League because he's had a couple more starts over the last couple of games. So we'll stick with Isidore, and I reckon in amongst those goals, one or two of them might be like real crackers, because he's got a nice finish on him, and in the Championship he scored a couple of spectacular ones. So hopefully there's more to come from him.
You know what though? When you look at last season's goal figures in the Premier League, it's not like what it used to be when I was a kid, when you had like 10, 15 players all scoring like upwards of 18 goals or whatever it was. It's totally changed. The game's totally changed. And yes, I am saying that Alan Shearer's record is forever tainted by playing against worse defenders in the Premier League, but we'll leave that there. But, you know, if you look at it, you know, Salah got 29, then Isak 23, Haaland 22, Mbeumo 20, Chris Wood 20, Wissa 19, Watkins 16. So it's not like, again, like, you know, when you think about people like, you know, even Kevin Phillips scoring as many as he did back in the day, and his record is definitely not tainted. So, you know, Kevin Phillips was playing against a better caliber, even though he was around at the same time. But, you know,
Do you want to show?
Yeah, I know. I should probably just put a pin in that one. But the point being is that the majority of teams don't have a player who gets like a ridiculous amount of goals. It's not the same as it used to be all them years ago. And Isidore might only get 10 goals this season, but he probably will be top scorer. And I think you're right, Andrew. I think what you're more likely to see is the centre halves chipping in with a lot of goals, and Siddiqui might get 3, Xhaka might get 4, and that's fine. I don't care really. I don't like when you've got a team that's heavily reliant on one player to score goals, because you end up in bother pretty quickly. Because if that player gets marked out of a game, then you snookered ultimately. I think that's another thing about the game changing, is that managers are having to set the teams up to be less predictable to be successful. You can't just have a team that, like what we had under Bruce, where everything went through Malbronk into Darren Bent. You can't. That's not gonna work these days. You need to have a team that's firing on all cylinders, quite literally. You need a team that's threatening from set players, from throw-ins, from second balls, from crosses into the box. You need to be able to thread them in when you're on the counter-attack. There's so many different ways to score goals now than there was in the Quinn and Phillips days, when it was literally just get it up to the big man and he'll knock it down. The game has completely changed, and for the good, in my opinion. It makes the games more fun to watch. I don't, as much as I loved having that one striker who got all the goals and you kind of hero worship them. It is a bit more fun the way we do it, isn't it?
It is more fun. You can't carry a striker now who does nothing other than score. You expect a bit more from strikers. And that Forest winner is a great example of what you're talking about. It's a central defender that scored for us. But the next time we have a free kick in that position, we're going to have to come up with a different routine, because everyone's going to know double up on El Drete at the far post. So next time, it could be a different central defender who scores, or it's played out wide and we have a cross shot or something. So yeah, there needs to be more flexibility in the way you play. And Le Bris, I think, has said it himself. Sunderland aren't necessarily going to create a hatful of chances every game. We're only going to create 2 or 3 golden opportunities, and he's going to expect somebody to tuck that away. It just doesn't necessarily have to be Isidore because of the way we are attacking sides.
Yeah, right. We'll quickly jump for another quick ad break, and then we'll do a couple more questions before we go.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Your earbud fell in a coffee cup. You need a taco pick-me-up. When modern life gets rough, grab the timeless taste you love. Paso, the old El Paso.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
And welcome back to Haway The Podcast. Let's get on with a few more questions. I will come to you next, I think, Johnny. Martin Bell has said, and this is over on Twitter, has said, Stewart left to further his career. Clark left as he felt he'd progress faster and beyond Sunderland. Watson the same, Job similar. All could have seen careers surpass where they are now had they stayed. Should that be a warning to players not to rush their development?
I don't know if we can say Job would have had a better career so far, because he's playing in the Champions League and he played at the Club World Cup, mind. So just to preempt that one, but fair points on the rest. I mean, I kind of touched on this before, talking about the way that I think certainly people within the world of football, players and coaches and all the rest of it, I think the way they assess moves is obviously different to us, because it is their job. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but, they're getting paid money for it. So, the old saying of, if somebody came to you and said, oh, I'm going to, treble or quadruple your wages. I mean, your job's going to be shit, but you're going to be getting loads of money. Plenty of people would take that offer and nobody would bat an eyelid because it'd be like, well, yeah, it's your job. That's what you got to do. Nobody else was going to offer Ross Stewart the money that Southampton clearly went and offered. Nobody else was going to offer Jack Clark the money.
Or Watson, by the way. I mean,
or Watson.
I had heard, and this might be bollocks, but I heard he's on something in the region of 60 grand a week at Brighton.
Yeah, which we're just never going to get anywhere near offering that to an 18, 19-year-old kid when we're fresh up out of the Championship. So I think, there's no reason to... I just think it's a little bit silly sometimes to look at it as if like, oh, well, they made the wrong decision, they've left, I bet they regret it now. Look at what you could have had if you'd stayed. Because that's also not true. If we don't sell Job and Watson, we don't spend 170 million in the summer, we probably don't have Granit Xhaka or one of them, you know what I mean, at least, where we wouldn't have had the money to go and do it. There wouldn't have been the same hole in the squad that needed filling. If we don't sell Tommy Watson, then maybe we don't sign Chemsden Talby, or maybe we don't sign, whoever it is. So in a lot of ways, those sales, they help us as much as anything else. Like as I've said, we wouldn't have had the money to spend, but also, and again, this is something that I think we've touched on, and it's especially relevant in the light of the whole Isak saga in the summer. Players will look at how a club treats its, current and recently ex-players and coaches very carefully, because obviously that's where they're, prospectively about to go and sign for and commit themselves to. So if we're turning round to Tommy Watson and going, nah, sorry, mate, we're going to block your move to Brighton, and then he doesn't score that goal and we don't go up, and then, you know what I mean? It doesn't help him, it doesn't help us, it doesn't help anybody. Now, it's different if you're in the middle of a relegation battle or something and somebody comes and waves a load of money in front of us for, say, Isidore is our top scorer by January, and, I think it's seen Villa rumoured to have some interest. If Villa come and offer us, 50 million quid or something stupid, that would be silly for us to accept because you're in the middle of a relegation battle and all the rest of it. But in the grand scheme of things, these kind of sales are the what's allowing the model that we've got in place to function. So I think we just need to take a more kind of bigger picture view on this sort of stuff these days and accept as a fan base that it's what keeps us going. So as long as it's paying dividends on the pitch in the longer term, which obviously it currently is, then I'm more than happy with it. So I do still see the underlying point, though. I think, Clark for me is the poster child of that. Like, that was a move that never made sense footballing wise. And so it's proven. And he's wasted a couple of seasons of his career where he could have been and should have been performing at a higher level in front of the big crowds. But yeah, I think for us as a club, it's fine.
The only thing I've got to take issue with there, Isidore in a relegation battle with who? Villa? Or who are you talking about? Relegation battle?
Yeah, true. Sorry. When we're in the Champions League race come January and Isidore's a top scorer.
By the way, that has happened with that exact club before, because we were flying when we had Darren Bent. They were doing shite and they still took them off us. But yeah, different times, certainly. And we've, on the theme of transfers, we've had it's more of a point than a question from Jimmy, who is at unseen5292 on Twitter. He said, you can already see the writing on the wall for this squad in the next 18 months to 2 years. Siddiqui Diarra, Roofs and Mukiele and possibly more are probably all going to be worth upwards of 50 to 60 million each in the coming windows. The model is the model, but that is amazing recruitment. And I think we were all agreed on that. The recruitment's been unbelievable, and hasn't it? We've signed some, I'm not just going to say good players, some unbelievable players. And we got a question, I think it was last week for the Q&A pod, where I think it was John Kerr on Twitter had said, when you did your top 10 pods over the summer best ofs, how many of these players could you see potentially even topping those lists? And again, not trying to get too carried away, but some of these players are potentially some of the best we've had in their position. I mean, Granit Xhaka, even when we signed him, I said that's the best signing we've ever made, like hands down. We've
possibly,
never signed.
Yeah, there was him or Stefan Schwartz one. That was the comparison, and he's already overcome Schwartz's.
That's it. We've signed a lot of players who you could conceivably say will be the best that we've had in that position, just because all of a sudden we've got the resources to go and buy them players. Like when we've been in the Premier League before, we've spent money. Under our short, we spent money, but we weren't spending money on this kind of player where we are now. And this is our introductory season in the Premier League. So it sounds stupid, but let's say we stop up handily, and then next year we go again and sign another level up. It's like it is exciting times, and some of these players have been fantastic so far, haven't they?
Oh, 100%. And what I like about a lot of them were mentioned ukulele before, the partnership. And
there's the ukulele again. There we go.
The partnership that I'm supporting Chris all the way, and he's like, but the partnership in Alderati have already got, and they don't speak the same language.
Alderati as well. Alderati, there's another one. They're coming out with new ones today. Go on, Ant, give us another one.
That's how he was pronounced on Saturday on the telly. So Alderati.
God, leave him be. He's got a bad back.
And I'm getting the piss ripped out of us for me seeing now.
Well, lad's struggling here.
You know what I mean? I was calling Jewison Benetti for about 6 months.
So was that, to be fair. I was bad with that one.
But not like with their partnership. I mean, they don't speak the same language yet, and the fact they've got this tremendous partnership already after 6 games. I mean, the question before about Robin Ruffs, is he already our best goalkeeper ever after 6 games? You know, we're starting to question like things like that, and I mean, we still haven't seen the best of Habib Diarra because unfortunately he's picked up an injury. He's going to be out for a few months. I'm fully expect him to be class, you know, when he comes back. Granit Xhaka's come in, and you know the thing about Xhaka, and I know we've kind of waxed lyrical about him a lot on this podcast, but the fact he could have come and he could have been one of these ones, I'll see out my career, you know, my legs have gone this, that, and the other, which is completely not crap. The fact he's come here and in 6 games has shown this like desire and this leadership and this kind of want for us to be better. You know what I mean? And the fact he's doing the wise men saying he's patting about. This is like a footballer who's made his money. He's going to be a made man who's been in Champions League and everything like that. And he wants to elevate the level of this football club. And that his leadership is coming across on every other person in that changing room and in that squad. That the fact that they already now want to be better than they already are. And I think that's the biggest thing I can give, biggest compliment I can give to our recruitment, that we are going to levels we've never been before supporting this club. And it does feel a little bit frightening, like going like, hang on, is this Sunderland? Johnny mentioned it before. Are we actually in a dream here? Is this a well-run football club signing top quality footballers? It can't be us. You know what I mean? Because we haven't seen it maybe in 2 years under Bob Berry when Peter Reid got us 7th and all that. But that was a long, long time ago now. We've got a generation who weren't born then. You know what I mean? So it's class, mate. You know, I've always been a glass half full kind of fan, but even I'm just like kind of like in awe of what we've done so far. And it's happened, you know what, the last 2 or 3 years. It's slowly been built to this moment. And like I say, I mean, bloody hell, man, we've got some effing good footballers, like, to be fair. But even so, like, and I will say, I think I mentioned last week as well, you look at how well Trey Humes adapted to this league, and everyone thought he would have been getting yellow cards, red cards every single week. Yeah, I don't think he's been booked once this season. And Alan Morgan, Rogers, Sting and all that stuff possibly got away with one there. But he's been class, and he's like so disciplined now at the back as well. And that's just become off. He's got better players playing with him.
Yeah. Sean Cotterill over on Twitter, Andrew, he's asking, who do you think is going to be our player of the season? So many contenders already. I know it's very early in the season, but if you could look into the future a bit there, who's going to be player of the season?
Well, there's going to be plenty of options. And something Ant said there about Trey Hume. Trey Hume, like the club in general, just seems to step up and meet every challenge we come to. Ever since moving from, I think he was a part-time player in League One, he moved here, and now he's playing in the Premier League. A couple of weeks ago, we were having the question about whether he would be getting phased out of the team, and I thought he might have been. But I'm revising my opinion on that. I wouldn't be surprised if Hume stays pretty much an ever-present now. He was player of the season last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hume, and probably the right decision. This year, it could be any of the lads we've been mentioning earlier. Michele, Alderete, Xhaka.
All right, get off the fence. Come on.
If those pronunciations are right. I'll tell you what then. I'll tell you what I'll say, because he's going to be an absolute bargain and he's going to end up going to the World Cup, Robin Roofs. He's going to be our player of the season, not because he's been fantastic, just because he's a solid player and his distribution has been what has helped the team play the type of football they want to play.
We'll go around the table on this one. Go on, Johnny. Who do you think?
If it's not Xhaka, somebody's had an absolute worldie of a season. I mean, already he's front and centre of that race for me, and I expect him to be able to maintain this sort of level. So I'm expecting it to be Xhaka. I know that's a slightly easy answer, but just being blown away. I still pinch myself every time I'm at the ground for a home game and I see the lineups come up and you see Xhaka's name and he gets announced, and I'm just like, hang on. Yeah, we have Granit Xhaka. That happened. It's just mental. My honourable mention, though, would be Siddiqui. I've been so pleasantly surprised with him so far. And I think just as well because of his character and the way, he's always smiling and happy. He'll endear himself massively to us, I think, this season. So if not Xhaka, Siddiqui, but my money's on the big man.
Does Siddiqui not just get Young Player of the Year, just so there's no arguments? Give him Young Player of the Year.
Well, you were talking about options the other day on the preview pods a million times. There's got to be plenty of options for Young Player of the Year, that's for sure.
It won't be like last year where the Young Player of the Year were the best players, though. We've actually signed some older statesmen this season. What about you, Ant? There's one vote for already. One vote for Xhaka, one vote for Roofs. What about you?
I think Andrew's got a very, very good point with Robin Roofs. I've got to be honest. It's one of them. So far, obviously, it's very, very early, but unless someone comes through and has a really, really spot on rest of the season, but like Mukiele or however you bloody see it, I'll go for him just because I want to be different.
Yeah, well, when I first read that question, Xhaka was the first name. Like Johnny, it was Xhaka for me, but I'm interested to see how Mukiele does because, he's been so good so far. I think if he can maintain that level, we could be talking about him at the end of the season. It's nice to have all the. I mean, there's a bunch we haven't mentioned there. Alderete has not put a foot wrong. Trey Hume, obviously Andrew mentioned before, but Siddiqui, Diarra when he gets himself back fit, he was our record signing. Enzo Lafayette, Wilson Isidore, Mayenda, you just don't know, do you?
Well, you're mentioning some of those attacking names there. Isn't it interesting how we've had such a good start to the season and we're talking about who might be the best players, and all of us have gone for a defensive midfielder, a centre-back, a goalkeeper. Normally you'd think if you're potentially in a relegation battle, I'll say potentially because Gav will slap me wrists, but you would think if, like a relegation team, the keepers always look better because they're facing a million shots a game, even if they're conceding goals and that. But ours are all genuine shouts for just how good they are as players, aren't they? Which is a bit mental.
I tell you what, as well, I think who's gone under the radar as well is Enzo Lafayette. Because you expect, the flair and, scoring goals from 30 yards out or whatever. The graft that man gets to every game is phenomenal, mate. I mean, on Saturday, there was a couple of times where he just got in front of the attacker, brought the foul out. It was incredible. And this is a bloke who, he's not even in his correct position. He has been incredible so far this season,
Yep, there are many contenders, but I would stay with Xhaka for my vote. So I think that's 2 for Xhaka.
He's got player of the year after 6 games.
Yeah.
We'd all love to change our minds.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll round off with this question then from Kevin at K37DXN on Twitter. Johnny, he says, what do you think is the ceiling for us? We are relegation candidates still for some, but we look strong and resolute. We finished 7th under Reid in his first season. It wasn't his first season, but yeah, I know what you mean. First season after getting promoted the second time, I suppose. And although the Premier League is a different beast now, any reason why we can't be aiming for Europe instead of relegation? I'm talking about getting carried away 6 games in. We're talking about Europe, but what is the ceiling for this team, do you think?
Well, I'll be honest. It could be the sleep deprivation making us admit this out loud on a recorded podcast, but after the Villa game, I was talking about Well, you know what I mean? If you look at it, it's not impossible, is it? You know, top 6 is way out of the question. 7th, I think, way out of the question.
I'm just getting visions of this being played back like at the end of the season.
Hey, you said we're definitely staying up last week, so you're not allowed to start.
There's going to be some arsehole playing it back, isn't there?
But listen, all I'm saying is there are 9 teams in the league in Europe, right? So that's 9 teams who've got extra football, midweeks, all the rest of it. We're in a fortunate position in a lot of senses where we don't have that. We can just focus on the Premier League. Like, that can give you a little bit of a leg up. I'm not saying I think we will do it. I just think if everything went right, I could see a world where, you know, Palace are a bit distracted with Europe and they go deep in that competition. Villa end up going deep in the Europa League. Brighton have a good cup run. You know, they'll be looking to win a trophy because they got far in the FA Cup last season. If, and it's an if the size of Europe, I accept. But if those teams are faltering, Forest are struggling, West Ham and all the rest of it, if we could sneak up, I could see us just pipping into 8th, maybe on goal difference, and given the right performances in Europe by the other English teams, it could be the Conference League, couldn't it? So
you got to win the league, Johnny.
Yeah, what I'm saying is HMS Pistol League's just left the harbour, lads. So get on board. But no, I think legitimately, I do think that is the absolute maximum we could possibly reach this season. I don't think we will. I will just make that clear as well. Like you say, before somebody clips it up. But it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. You should never ever aim, set your sights too low. Even when you listen to some of the players, they're not. I've kind of touched on this on recent pods. They're not talking about relegation. They're not interested in the words relegation battle. I think Nordy Mukiele was asked about it, and he said, "I'm just thinking about the next game and winning it," and that's the attitude. It's not. There's no talk of relegation. There's no talk of Europe. There's no talk of anything. It's just we have a game on Saturday that we have to win, and then when we've played that one, we move on to the next one. We have a game next Saturday that we have to win. And I honestly think that's the right attitude to have, because then if we keep accumulating points in the way that we are, and we get January and we have a good January window and we sign 2 or 3 top quality players, like we just add quality, we don't lose anybody, then at the back end of the season, you look at things very differently and you go, actually, you know, things are starting to form up. We're not in a relegation battle, you know, and then you start aiming a little bit higher then. Well, right now, I think the attitude that the players have got and the manager's got and the club have got is just, you know, win the next game.
I'll have you one round to us getting into Europe by the end of the season, lads.
Do you know, I just... Right, if this was any other club, looking at the way that things are going, you would never write that off.
Sheffield United finished 8th under Wilder.
Yeah, well, it happens. No, it does happen. I'm not saying it won't. And the opportunity to get into Europe's never been greater with the Conference League, has it? That's the point. You know, you've got Palace in the Conference League now, and they're going to fancy themselves to win that competition. So all that's got to happen is you have a good season. A few others don't. A couple of English teams do well in Europe like they did last year, and then the opportunities are there for you. But there are probably a bunch of other clubs thinking the exact same way. Right now, I'm just taking the stance of the players in the club. Next game's the most important one. I don't want to get too carried away. I did say let's get carried away on the reaction pod the other day, but in that I mean, like, you know, I suppose to a degree getting carried away would be the next game is Man U away, and I think we can beat them.
Yeah,
and that is getting carried away in many respects. Never in my life have I ever felt confident of going to Old Trafford and winning a game of football, but I do now. And I know there's a number of factors in that. There's a number of reasons why. But still, to be sat here and saying them words is unbelievable to me. That Sunderland could legitimately go to Old Trafford as favourites. We won't be the favourites with the bookies, but in my eyes, looking at the two teams, and I mean, they're talking about... I know Amarim's been under a lot of pressure, but I think we're actually reaching the point where if he gets beat off Sunderland, he could lose his job.
Mm-hmm.
So they're at that stage now where they're under severe pressure to win this game. There's no pressure on us.
You're at a point where you'd probably be disappointed if we don't come away with something, wouldn't you? Like, you know what I mean? If we're talking about this on, I got a podcast Saturday night or whatever, and we've lost, you'd be like, oh, It's like, what? What's going on?
So when you're talking about ceilings, I guess you've got to set. It's more like, where are our expectations right now? Our expectations aren't to go and win the league or qualify for Europe. Our expectations are, I fancy Sunderland to beat anybody at the minute, or at least take them all the way and get a point, or at least push them to their absolute limits.
Yeah.
We are not pushovers. We're not going to be pushed over by anybody. So if you want to beat us, you're going to have to work bloody hard to do it. And that's my ceiling. My ceiling is just try us. Try and see what you can do. And I bet you'll come out on the other end of it sore if you take us lightly, because a lot of teams already have this season.
Mm.
So is that a cop-out? Is that a cop-out? I don't know.
No, I don't think it is, Gav, because I think a ceiling for us is probably maybe not this season, but in about 2 or 3 years' time to become an established Premier League club, because we've never been that, have we? We've always been a team who've been, flirting with relegation, or what was 6-7 years in a row where we did the rinse and repeat of sat on somebody, getting somebody in, surviving by the skin of our teeth, and then it happened the season after.
It goes back to what I said when we were talking about the teams, like when we were on about the question we got with relegation potential shocks. West Ham have been in this league for 12 years.
Yeah.
You know what? They've won a Conference League, but they're not in a good place. We need to become established, you're right. Whether that's
like a Bournemouth, a Brighton, or whatever. And listen, if eventually we get into Europe, because I think even if we did the impossible, and what Johnny's saying about 8th, because I kind of see his points, because at the minute I don't see 12 worse teams I don't see 12 better teams in us, sorry. But I think it would be too early by probably 2 or 3 years. Well, if we're talking about this 2 or 3 years' time and we're like, hang on, we're outsiders for Europa League or this, that, and the other, and that's brilliant for us. I think the potential ceiling for us has got to be establish, stay up by hook or by crook this year, which I think we're going to do. Have a nice cup run, that'll be lovely. Getting the odd 3 points off the mags, beating the City or Liverpool or something like that, having a really good time along the way. But make sure that all this hard work that's happened so far to get to this position isn't undone in 6, 7 months, 8 months or whatever. And in 2 or 3 years' time, if we're still on this podcast, I've probably got an year left. And we're still talking, and we're talking about us being a viable option for Europe, then for me, that's what we are.
Lads, up until just towards the end of Ant's answer there, and you mentioned a cup run, everything Gav said there about the team at the moment screams to me like a team who might have half a chance of a decent cup run.
Would be a good knock outside, wouldn't we, as well?
Aye. Johnny's got us down for 8th in the league. I think he's setting his sights too low, because you know what'll happen with Sunderland after all of these years not qualifying for Europe. We'll end up winning the FA Cup and qualifying via the league.
We're going to win the league, man, I'm telling you.
I've said it before. I've said it plenty of times on this podcast. We only do extremes.
Well, exactly.
I can't believe after what I just come out with, Andrew's managed to call us unambitious.
Well, no, I can just, that would be the epitome of classic Sunderland. We somehow end up qualifying for Europe twice, having never done it in 50 years.
It's a pity. It's a pity this isn't video, like a video podcast, because you literally just seen a light bulb go off in Andrew's head about halfway through what Johnny was saying.
Well, exactly. Why is everyone talking about scraping into 8th? That's
oh God,
chicken feed. We're going to be chasing proper silverware here.
Oh, well,
Gav, I'm sorry for giving my answer, because I've clearly unlocked the mass psychosis in this call here.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's what happens when you just completely overachieve past your own expectations. Like, none of us saw this coming, so all of a sudden we're like, actually, you know what it is? I think it was Martin said it on the one that we put out at the weekend with Danny Collins. You just do not know what to expect from this team. You don't. How can you?
Yeah.
Because we don't know these players well enough. We don't know their capability as a team. Everyone's completely shocked by how well they've gelled. And then you start thinking, well, have they actually gelled that well? Is this just them at the start of their journey? And actually, once they gel properly, it's gonna be even better. You just don't know. You just haven't got a clue. Which is why we can sit here and make wild assumptions about where the season might potentially go. Because absolutely none of this makes any sense. This is fucking bizarre.
It is.
I've never ever been.
Who's made wild suggestions on this call?
All I've heard is logical, reasoned argument, actually. So.
Exactly. Gav, you said you don't know what to predict. I certainly wasn't predicting sitting down on this call about an hour or so ago, claiming we were going to do some sort of cup and league double. But there you go.
Yeah, let's go before people start referring us to doctors and getting us seen to, because we'll have
the blokes with the white coats are going to take me and Andrew into the padded rooms in a minute, I think.
Can I just quickly say to any of those ones who are thinking about doing it, I am doped up the eyeballs on, legal drugs and everything like that, because I have got a really bad back, and I actually gave a sensible answer to that last question, so there we are.
Yeah, so God knows what Johnny and Andrew were on. And Johnny's still on. I did say Johnny's on a come down from Amsterdam. He's still high, I think. Anyways, we will leave it there and leave our listeners to get back to their lives, because we've taken up far too much of the time. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. We do appreciate it. Thank you if you are already subscribed. If you're not already subscribed, why aren't you? You get a free, brand new Sunlun podcast on your feed every single day from us. So make sure you get subscribed. We've got plenty to catch up on. If you haven't already heard all of the reaction from the weekend, I was on Saturday with Chris and Andrew, of course, reacting to the game. And then on Sunday morning, we had a pod with Sunderland's former Brazil international defender, Danny Collins, who joined the lads and with his hoarse voice managed to get through that one and give some really good insight into the game, because he was there, of course. Coming up this week, we've got a bunch of really good stuff. We've got a great preview guest, which I'm not going to reveal yet because it's not been recorded yet, but should that one come through, I'm looking forward to you all listening to that. And a Man U fan who everyone's probably aware of, and he's a funny guy. So hopefully that one I will be able to reveal over the coming days. And we were also being joined by Tom White this week of Sky Sports. So plenty to come up on the feeds for you at Haway The Podcast. Just need to say thank you very much, Ant. Hope your back gets better soon, mate.
So do I. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Andrew, thank you very much. And cheers for nearly giving us a heart attack with those predictions.
There's another heart attack coming. I'll very quickly say, Gav, you haven't asked the best question of the lot. There was somebody on Ready to Go asking us to line up the squad and judge which order we'd like to get off with them all.
Well, I know what your answer would be.
So
I know what your answer would be. It would be Alderete, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly. I've got a long list here that I've been working on all day.
And Alderete's got a long.
Yeah. So you're talking about wrapping up this episode. I'm thinking, Gav, where's the gold? This was going to be the main talking point, and it's
honest.
So the next question for next week's: which player we're most sexually aroused by?
I definitely am still high here, like.
Right, let's go. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Andrew.
Podcast up the last week.
Cheers, lads.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you to the listeners.
I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, and get to bed. Bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.